Hello there, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of CookieCast. Today on CookieCast, it's Darkest Timeline podcast. So, you know the drill by now. Something from the week. Games, movies, TV, running maybe, working out maybe. Anything that sort of pops into this here tiny little mind. So yeah, if you're checking us out on YouTube, then be a YouTube subscriber. It's where all the cool kids hang out. And if you're already subscribing, you're awesome. But what's more awesome is getting others to do the same. If you just like the audio experience, that's perfectly fine. But you can also subscribe wherever you get your podcast, whether it's SoundCloud, iTunes, or anywhere else. Subscribe, because it's what superheroes do. So here we go. This is CookieCast, the Darkest Timeline podcast. Oh, right then. Well, I got a podcast for you. So, a bit of background that you absolutely don't need, but you know, it makes me feel better. Didn't do a podcast last week. What that means is I got 2 weeks worth of material to go through. So, rather than making this a 2.5 hour podcast, or doing what might have been the sensible thing and trying to record 2, like the break never happened, I'm actually using it as an opportunity to bring the distance between recording and releasing a little closer together. It's risky, obviously, you know, doesn't allow for things like sickness and stuff. Add, for example, what's happened in the last week. But you know, another week closer to glory. Don't know if that makes any sense. So let's start off with, I'm drinking a lovely non-alcoholic beer. I believe it's called Implosion. Speaking of implosions, today's been an absolute shit show, to get the swearing out of the way early. Honestly, every possible thing I could have done today was a ultimate disaster. If each option had like a left and a right, and the left was the right option and the right was the wrong option, I absolutely picked the right. I should have done that the other way around, shouldn't I? I picked the wrong option for everything. Yeah, just an absolute mess of a day. So, you have to bear in mind that some of this stuff is like 2 weeks old. What I'm going to do is basically I'm just going to rattle through it, which I know, you know, in a way sounds a bit cheaty, like I'm cheating sort of thing. You know, if it's worth talking about, I should be talking about it. But I'm sure you're going to appreciate nobody wants to listen to me talk for 2.5 hours, probably more. So now that I've prattled on and wasted everybody's time, let's get going. Not to date this, but we're a couple of weeks into April at this point in time. The back end of April, early May by the time you're hearing this. In March, I ran 50 miles. That's the information there. Let's get into it. Reason being is, in January, I saw a podcast alum, Stuart Woodmansey and Matthew Moore, were doing a running challenge where they were going to run 50 miles in the month of January. And I was like, that's an amazing idea. I wish I'd have got in on that action. But hey, you know, I can do that. So I set myself the goal of running 50 miles in February. Now then, February is a shorter month, as we know, and I lost 2 days of running to snow days where I couldn't go out and run. What that meant was, although I'd set the goal of 50 miles, I missed it by 3 days. So, reset for March, and was like absolutely doing 50 miles this month. On my last running day of March, I completed 51.5 miles. At time of recording, I've set myself the goal of running 55 miles in April, and you'll be pleased to hear I lost 5 running days so far of April. That's going well. And after tomorrow, I'll lose at least a week's worth of running. So I don't think it's going to happen, is what I'm saying. But you know, we've always got me. So yeah, that was my achievement for the month of March. As it was, the last time I was talking to you guys, I was talking about the fact that I bought a puppy. We're 2 weeks down the line from there. It's so I had a conversation with a few people in the last sort of week or so. I should stop tapping that because that's just going to be an annoyance. And I was like, of all the stuff that you have to do to have a puppy, you kind of wonder why anybody would do it. It's so much work. I will go out on a limb and say that it is vastly more work than having a baby. In hindsight, I should have just had another baby. Now, again, this is one of those already, it sounds negative, it already sounds like I'm regretting my decision and all of that sort of stuff. That's not the case. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is, it is so much work that I am like, why would anybody choose to do this? Obviously, I've chosen to do it, and if I'm honest, no, in my experience, no matter how much research you do beforehand, cannot prepare you for what you need to know. And I Google stuff every day. I look stuff up every day. Oh, what about this? Well, how can we change that? How can we adjust this? How can we make this better? How can we make that better? How can we stop him biting everybody apart from me? That sort of stuff. So, the short takeaway here is you can never be prepared enough. You simply can't. Without doing it, you can't be prepared enough. Again, if I'm honest, and I do try to be honest in this situation, I can see why dogs, puppies, so on and so forth, end up going to animal shelters. I can see why. That is absolutely not what the situation in our house is. But I can see it. I can see, like I say, other than me, and he still has a really good go every now and then. He communicates with pretty much everybody else in the house by attempting to bite them. And I know why that is. It's a sibling thing. It's a paternal thing. It's a way that puppies communicate, playing, showing affection, and all of that. It's not great for little hands and even for big hands. There's already been a couple of items of clothing come a cropper and stuff like that. But it's bonkers. It's like, the one I looked up yesterday, I think it was. Which is not the first time I've looked up. This is the thing, you just keep looking stuff up, like double checking, triple checking. You know, I must have Googled how much food a puppy can eat about 8 times. And what's nice about it is that nobody knows. Nobody knows anything. And everything tells you to look somewhere else. My favourite has to be taking him to the vet giving him his vaccine, and him being like, this vaccine's slightly different, so it means you can take him out earlier than you normally would. You know, anywhere around 7 to 10 days, whatever you think. And I'm like, what? Okay, so which is it? 7 or 10 days? Well, it's whatever you think, you know, however healthy you think your dog is. I'm like, did I go to university for 7 years to throw darts at a dartboard on answers? That's a prime example of finding out information for puppies. There isn't a definitive answer. Nobody knows. And everybody's got an opinion, and that opinion is usually ask someone else. So that's basically the world that I'm in. It's you know, it's we've got this whole sleep shift thing going, because he has to get up to go to the toilet X number of times through the night. I don't feel great about it, because I don't it's hard to explain. I don't really get disturbed in the night. I'm a heavy sleeper. So that means that me taking the night shift is not overly feasible. You know, things like working, difficult, looking after children, as well as a furry child is difficult. You know, it's all this. But then you've got the other side of it, the adorable side, the you know, when a puppy tells you that all they need from you is a hug, the fact that you see them physically grow, like you can actually almost physically see them growing, training when they actually get it, and you can see the signs of them getting it. Unfortunately, at puppy age, they also forget it as well. So like, oh my god, he's got it, he understands. And the next day it's like, you knew this yesterday, why don't you know it now? And some stuff's like automatic reflex. How do you train someone to sit when their automatic go-to move is to sit? Stuff like that. It's hard, it's tough, it's tiring, it's draining. In hindsight, should have just had another child, you know, all of that sort of stuff. But it's great. It's fun. It's he's adorable. He gives full blown hugs. It's hilarious. He loves nothing more than a full blown hug. One paw one side of your head, the other paw the other side. Puts his head on your shoulder, tucks himself right into the sort of the crook of your neck, and just wants you to hold him. It's hilarious. All I can think is when he's fully grown, what that's going to look like. But hey, so yeah, there's been some puppy fun. Obviously, when you add to that the fact that my youngest has well and truly discovered the terrible twos. At one point in time, I had considered attempting to train my youngest at the same time I'm training the puppy, because I honestly see some real benefits to training. So yeah. I lost a day. So, you know that thing where you wake up one day and the whole day you're like, oh man, it's Wednesday today. And it's not, it's Tuesday. Or, oh man, it's Wednesday today, but in actual fact it's Thursday. And your day's just so thrown by the whole thing. I physically lost a day. Because for the entirety of last week, whatever day it was, I thought it was the day. Now let me get this right. Was it that I thought it was the day before? No. So last Monday was Bank Holiday Monday. Is that right? So I will have thought it was Sunday on the Monday. But then on the Tuesday, I thought it was the Monday. Because that's the thing, normally, by the time you get up the next day, it's corrected itself, and you know what day it is. But for the entire week, I was just like, it's the day before. Got all the way through to Thursday, and on Thursday, managed to convince myself it was Sunday. So by then, I was just way off. And then Friday I went back to work because I'd had last week off. I went back to work. It was the most bizarre thing. I can't explain why, but for an entire week I was on the wrong day. I don't know if it was some kind of connection to being tired or just a series of, it was like Good Friday, Easter Sunday, Bank Holiday Monday, so that had the opportunity to throw things out. Because, a Sunday and a Bank Holiday Monday, they could be, you could get them mixed up, whether it was that. But then surely by the Wednesday, it should have sorted itself out. But it didn't. And I was like, towards the back end of it all, I was starting to get a little concerned. Because I'd never had it, I'd never experienced it, I'd never experienced an entire week of, it's this day. No, it isn't, it's this day. Just really weird. A really weird experience. I'm pleased to report it's all sorted. It's sorted itself out, and I believe it's Monday today. So, yeah. This beer is lovely. I've been promising myself to drink a non-alcoholic beer for a week. Again, refer back to the joys of puppy, and this is how bad it is. I haven't drunk a non-alcoholic beer in case I need to go to the toilet whilst I'm puppy sitting, and he's so needy and clingy that if I leave the room he starts crying. So yeah, I'm not saying that I've intentionally dehydrated myself over several evenings, but I'm also saying I'm not saying that I might have. An observation. Can we all agree that Lego is the absolute worst toy? So here we go, right? I love Lego. I certainly used to. Then I had to stop buying it. But then with having like all these children, it's like, it's Lego, isn't it? Lego, everybody loves Lego. So you get back into buying it. So here's my issue with Lego, and this is why I believe Lego is the worst toy. So follow it with me. You get the box. Oh look what it can do. It's a car. Let's go with the standard. It's a car. Oh yeah, let's do it as a car. You open the box. You take out all the bags. You take out the instructions. You turn to page 1. open the variety of bags, and you start taking the pieces out and putting them together. So it takes X amount of time. I've done, you know, Lego. Are they referred to as Lego sets these days? I've done Lego sets that have taken hours. You know, I'm down with that. So you get to the end, you look at it, you go, there it is. There's the fruits of my labour. I put in X amount of time into building this Lego, and it is now complete. Now what? What happens to that piece, that item? So, talk from a child perspective, and I can give you an example. My eldest and my middle daughter got some Lego, different types of Lego, for Easter. One got this little cube that you build like a Lego scene inside the cube, and it was a rabbit, you know, Easter and all that. And then my eldest got sort of like an actual Lego set. It was just a little one. You build like I want to say like a little 4x4, but like a little buggy. And then it seemed like almost like a mini desert island. I didn't really see the connection. So I sat with my middle daughter and built her Lego, which involves her losing interest immediately, and me building the Lego for her. Now, let's face it, I don't have any issues there. And it comes back round to her being interested because these sets come with stickers, and the stickers need sticking on, and she can do the stickers. So, you know, swings and roundabouts in it. The Lego is completed. Yay, Lego is completed. So here's what happens. You go, look at that, that's cool, isn't it? She's doing this thing, and that person doing that thing, and yay. And then you close the cube, and you put it on a shelf, and it's never looked at again. But it's fine, because my eldest also got some Lego, and she's at the age now where she can do it all on her own. So she cracked the box open, she's got the instructions out, got the bags out, and away she went. And I think there was a point where she came to me, she was like, I've put this piece on wrong, can you take it off and put it back on? I said yes. And then I started talking about the fact that, you know, in our big box of Lego, I believe there's a tool for removing Lego pieces. Cool idea. So she sits on the floor, build, Lego, build. And then she's like, I finished my Lego. It's like, cool. Is it good? And then we got into a conversation about how it was just really weird. For some reason, the vehicle was chained to the mini desert island, and we couldn't work out what the connection was or why. And I was like, is one trying to stop the other from either floating away or rolling away? Absolutely no idea. So the Lego moved from the floor to the table. Oh, you can't leave that there. That's a cat or puppy chew toy. So let's move it from the table to the mantelpiece. Okay, we've hit the mantelpiece. Everything's good. You know, lift the box up because it's got all the spare bits in. Don't want anybody swallowing a spare bit of Lego. Okay. Next day, my eldest shows my middle daughter the Lego she built, and then it migrated from the mantelpiece to a shelving unit, and it's been there ever since. That is exactly a week ago. That's that. That is the end of that. And here's my point. I hear you scream, what's your frigging point, man? You can't play with Lego. And I'm going to caveat that. If you've got like a huge box Lego and you build something from a huge box Lego, like you build a car or something, I believe you can play with that. But if you've got a Lego set, you don't really play with it. So, the enjoyment of Lego comes from the building side of it. Which is cool, but let's face it, you're only going to do it once. Are you really going to go, cool, I built this Lego, now let me take it apart and build it again? No, you're not. And I have this realisation that Lego is actually the worst toy. Because toy that you can't play with. That the enjoyment comes from a one-time deal. So yeah. If anybody from Lego is listening to this, I actually have some ideas of how they can make their Lego more interesting. So yeah, give me a call. Here's one for you. I'm not going to lie. One of the reasons to get a dog was, might sound a little strange, but it was to help with weight loss. Because I'm like, so if I work it out, I go running on a morning, but the dog's going to need walking as well. So that's a walk and a run on a morning. On an evening, work out, but dog's going to need a walk on an evening. So there's that. Chances are I'm probably going to need a little bit of a something round about lunchtime. So there's that. So all I could see was all those miles, rack up all those miles. So yeah, let's get a puppy. Let's get a puppy, shall we? Let's lose some weight. Yeah, right. So I weighed myself last Monday. So Monday is weighing day. I imagine anybody that's listened to this for a while knows that by now. And the one thing I don't do is I don't weigh myself until the next Monday. Or at least I didn't. So 2 weeks ago, I was like, you know something, I feel like I've probably lost weight. But the only way to find out is to weigh myself. So I weighed myself on the Thursday of the week, and I'd lost all this weight. And I was like, oh. And I wrote it down, because I record how much weight I've lost each week. So I wrote it down, and I was like, that's amazing. Amazing. That weekend, so we're 2 weeks ago now. That weekend, I saw this article about, is your weekend killing your progress? And it was like, if you're having cheat meals, drinking a lot of alcohol, doing all this stuff, but you're working really hard during the week, you might be destroying your progress. So I'm like, I have a cheat meal. I don't think it's that big a deal. Got to the Monday. So that's now last Monday. Weighed myself. I was like, what the hell has gone on here? So let's work through. Monday I weighed myself. Thursday weighed myself just because, and I'd lost this weight. And I was like, oh my God, yeah. But by the Monday, I'd lost £1 pound in a week. That seems very strange. So, from last Monday, I got through to, now then, it might have been Thursday. Yeah, I think it was Thursday. I was like, do you know something? I'm really feeling like I've lost some weight here. Slept on the scales. From Monday where I'd weighed myself to last Thursday, I'd lost £6. I was blown away. I was like, what is going on here? £6. I was like, do you know something? There's something's off kilter here. So I was like, right, I'm gonna work this out. So I was like, I'm gonna commit myself to weighing myself every day up to Sunday, and then obviously I'll weigh myself today. So I weighed myself the next day, lost another pound. Weighed myself the next day, lost another pound. And it went like this. Basically, by Saturday, which is cheat meal day, I'd lost £9 or £8. £9 I think I'd lost. Absolutely blown away. Amazing. This is amazing. This is everything I was looking for. You know, I did the right thing getting this puppy. And just imagine what it's going to be like when you can go out for walks. All of this, I was just like, wow. Saturday night, cheat meal o'clock. Nom 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 nom. Yummy. Sunday, get up, get on the scales. And from Saturday to Sunday, I had put on £6. Now, here's the thing. I'm saying this here and now. If anybody that is listening to this right now is in the fitness game or knows about this sort of thing, please drop me a line. Go onto thecookiecast.com, get some form of contact details from the website. Contact me any way you like. Twitter, Instagram, email, smoke signal, whatever. Get yourself on the podcast and talk to me about what the hell is going on there. Because then it got even worse. Because weighing myself today, I'd lost £5 compared to yesterday. What is going on there? So I can tell you, in fact, let me look, because it's in my notes where I write everything down. Yeah, so half a stone in a week. Absolute mind blown. Also, I've gone another notch on my weight belt, and those notches, I'm sure, are like 1.5 inches. But for safety, let's call it 1 inch. But that's 1 inch off my waist since the last time it moved. Absolutely bonkers. So there we go. Right, let's rattle through some stuff. Some bits I'm not going to dwell on. Like I say, I'm trying to fit 2 weeks content into one podcast, and unfortunately, some of it is 2 weeks old, so I can't fully remember it quite. I'm still watching Invincible. So I watched episode 4 last week, like the week before last, and then I watched episode 5 last week. So it comes out on a Friday, so I've seen 2 episodes. Episode 4, at the time I'd seen episode 4, I'd also read this really long review of the show, and I hated everything about the review, because the review just solely focused on how the show's not like the comics. The comics from the 90s and early noughties. So we're talking 20 plus years ago, and all the review had to say was it's not like the comics. Now I am a purist, so I can see where that's coming from. Don't get me wrong, but I feel that is taken away from the show that is Invincible, and I think it is awesome. It's to me some of the best TV I've seen in a long time. I am just gonna double check. Because yes. So episode 4, Mark, the main character, goes off to Mars, and stuff happens on Mars, struggling with the duality of being a superhero, living a superhero lifestyle, having a girlfriend, school, job, etc. It was fine. It was a perfectly fine episode. It was probably, in some ways, a little bit of a less, because the other episodes have been so punchy. This was very much a cartoon of the week episode in a lot of ways. Episode 5, however, one thing I will say is I noticed a slight step down in the animation, a little bit. I don't know why that is. It didn't really overly affect anything. It just looked a little bit not quite as good. Episode 5, Jesus. The episode's going along fine. It's just, an episode, a story, and that. A little bit of a spoiler. Might be a lot of a spoiler. We'll see. Basically, at the back end of the episode, there is a big superhero battle versus a big group of super villains. I don't know if that's necessarily all that much of a spoiler. It was up there with what I think is the scene from the first episode that is just some of the most brutal stuff I've ever seen. Episode 5 was up there with that. I kind of had to turn away from the screen. Bearing in mind this is animation, but on the flip side, it's animation. You can do whatever you want with animation. I was saying that in the 80s, so nothing's really changed there. It was brutal. Little bit of something at the end of the episode. We'll see what comes of that. But yeah, I love it. I think it's some of the best TV I've seen in a long time. Obviously, the big TV thing I've watched of late has been American Gods, and we know the issues I've had with that as a show. So it's nice to just have this really enjoyable TV. I watched some stand-up, which, although stand-up is an absolute, it's a true love of mine, it's a passion of mine. I love it. I do feel you have to be in the mood for it, and you do have to set aside the time for it. What I have at the moment is I'm still listening to a lot of podcasts, and the majority of my podcasts are done by comedians. So there's that element of that like drip feed comedy into my life. But I really fancied a bit of comedy. So I watched. Now this is where it's a bit muddy, because I believe this particular style of comedy would actually be described as spoken word. I watched Henry Rollins' Keep Talking Pal. So I'm sure in the past I've seen Henry Rollins described as spoken word rather than stand-up comedy. And as far as I describe it to people, it's him telling stories that just so happen to be funny, is the way I would describe it. Henry Rollins has been around in my life since I was 18, 19 years old. Somebody I was friends with at the time lent me a couple of tapes. That's right, cassette tapes of his spoken word stuff, and they helped me through a difficult time. So I was hugely appreciative of that. And then he's just somebody that just pops up constantly throughout my life. I think it must have been a Joe Rogan Experience podcast that had him on, and it was just fascinating. He is a fascinating person. And he did this spoken word stand-up, whatever you want to call it. Told some amazing stories. He's so incredibly passionate about things, just like you wouldn't believe the level of passion he has for stuff. And I love stuff like that. I love people who are passionate about things. So it was great. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's one of those, if you're in the mood for that kind of thing, absolutely give that a whirl. Because, you know, you might enjoy it, is what I'm saying. I then went like classic. I watched 2 Sam Kinison stand-up specials. Now, I don't have the names of them. I made note of the name of one of them, but never wrote it down. I can't remember it now. One's like the Family Entertainment something or other. Short version is they were both, at the time I got them, they were both available on Amazon Prime. So if it's something that you're interested in. Sam Kinison is not a comedian I know, but I know of him. I know that he came through the same class as Bill Hicks. I know that pretty much every single stand-up comedian I listen to or have anything to do with through whatever regard him very highly. I know that you know, he was regarded highly, although I also know years later there was a lot of controversy around some of his stuff. I think it's viewed as misogynistic and homophobic and so on and so forth. But I don't know how this sounds, which sometimes makes me think I shouldn't say things, but I can look at comedy from the perspective of the time it was made. So the prime example I would always give is, if you actually go back and look at Eddie Murphy's Raw, you know, Eddie Murphy's Raw is regarded as one of the great stand-up comedy specials of all time. Go back and watch it, is all I'd say. Go back and watch it. There's some stuff, and I'm talking like, you know, quite a lot of stuff in there that would not be acceptable nowadays. But you have to look at the time it was made, the time it was recorded. So I think what I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's right by today's standards, but by the standards of that time, it still wasn't right. It was just accepted for that's the way it was. Certain words were okay then that aren't now. And I don't know if okay is the right word. I feel like I'm digging myself a bit of a hole there. Anyway, I didn't really know Sam Kinison other than I knew of him. And I knew that he was this big influence. To say a big influence is an understatement when you're talking about Bill Hicks. I never realised how close. And I read a lot of stuff about him afterwards, and there's a lot of stuff. It's not, you know, part of me would have been like, oh, you know, it feels very much like Bill Hicks stole elements of his act. But he has been quoted on record as saying that Sam Kinison was a huge influence on him. Which is kind of the way I think that you can get away with certain things. He reminded me a lot of Bill Hicks, is the short version. He also reminded me a lot of Donald Trump, which is very strange. I enjoyed both the stand-ups I watched. I enjoyed one more than the other. One was an older one, and that one I enjoyed a little bit more. Smaller crowd, smaller place. I don't know whether that had anything to do with that, or whether it was just a little bit older. I enjoyed it, is the short version. Yes, might not have been for everyone, and it certainly wouldn't fly today. And like I say, I know there has been some issues with the stuff that was in those specials, but there you go. I have watched some films. Again, luckily for me, not recently, but because this is 2 weeks worth of materials, I can talk about films that I've watched because they were a couple of weeks ago. I watched the film Mr. Nice. which is the story of Howard Marks. My small claim to fame in that regard is I once met Howard Marks in York, because he lived in York towards the back end of his life, and I once met him and spoke to him very briefly. So yeah, there was that. For those of you who don't know, Howard Marks was a drug smuggler. His drug was marijuana, which he did for many years until he was caught and spent a long time in a American prison, a federal prison. And because of the time that he spent in prison, he did a lot of good as far as teaching and things. He got early release, and then he wrote a book, did a stage show that was basically a stage show of the book, toured, and all of that. Very interesting story, very interesting man, very enjoyable. I've read the book, I've seen the show, so I was like, oh, it's time to watch the film. So I'm watching the film, everything's going swimmingly. It's got Rhys Ifans playing Howard Marks. The guy, I can't remember his name, I think it's Mark something or other, the guy that played Lupin in Harry Potter. And the woman who was his wife in it, or his second wife, has been in other stuff and I can't think what she's been in. Crispin Glover's in it, which was wildly entertaining. And I was watching it, everything's going fine, and it was the end of my puppy sitting shift, and there was 15 minutes left of the film, and I was like, oh man, it's only got 15 minutes left, but I really should go to bed, so I'll pause it there, and I'll pick that up tomorrow. Now I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, oh, Mr. Cook, you've made the mistake of watching something on Amazon Prime and you've left it a day and it's no longer on Amazon Prime. And you, sir, or madam, would be incorrect. It was still there, still ready to roll. So I got sat in my chair, ready to roll, press play, and I then witnessed 15 minutes of the most horrific content I have ever seen. It was disturbing, to say the least. I am traumatised by the back end of that film. I couldn't have picked a more apt place to stop that film, because literally from the point I started it again, it was 15 minutes of, I mean, it was bordering on horror. A little bit of a spoiler here, but there is a scene where he talks about like some of the, not necessarily injuries that he sustained. It's not like he got beaten up in prison, but being in prison, he suffered with various ailments. One of those ailments, or several of those ailments, was abscesses on his gums, to the point where they had to pull all of his teeth out. And he was in prison, so they couldn't give him any pain medication. They seemed to give him pain medication at the end, but they couldn't give him pain medication to start with. So they're just there, like, pinning him down and yanking the teeth out of his head. It was horrific. Anybody that knows me knows how I feel about teeth. You've got stuff like that. I was like, what is going on right now? What have I put on here? Is this some kind of, what is happening? I couldn't work out how it had gone from where it was to where it then was. Carried on watching. It then turned into like a load of stuff with his family, with his children. So the next thing, I'm sitting there watching this, crying like a baby, just absolutely sobbing. And it just went on and on and on. And then, like I say, eventually he went through the stuff where he got released from prison and made a good go of it. What a bizarre experience of me watching a film. Like I say, I actually feel traumatized by it. I don't know if it would have been the same if I'd have watched it all in one go. I don't know if it was just because I paused it and went back to it or what. But my word, that was a brutal experience. So yeah, I worked my way through the Blade films. I think I've spoken about it before. I got the box set, the Blu-ray box set, for my birthday, maybe last year, and I watched Blade, and that was that. I didn't get around to watching the other two. Pardon me. I've since rectified that, and I watched the other two. Yes, that obviously includes watching Blade Trinity. Don't hold it against me. I've always been very up and down with the second one. There are aspects of the second one that never sat right with me. And I watched it, and it was fine. Always makes me chuckle when some of the people that are in that film, like Norman Reedus, Danny John Jules, Ron Perlman. It's like just those sort of actors that, obviously Norman Reedus went on to do Walking Dead. Ron Perlman being Ron Perlman. Danny John Jules, I think, is back to playing the cat in Red Dwarf, stuff like that. And I watched it, and it was fine. But here's something, and I'm not overly sure how to explain this, but I'll talk it through. We get to the end. The credits start rolling, and it flashed up the director, and I was like, what? Because the director of Blade 2 is Guillermo del Toro of Hellboy fame, really. And I was like, I didn't know that. It's one of those things, I imagine that I did know it and I've forgotten it, but I was like, I'm blown away by that information. So there you go, that was that. I did watch Blade Trinity. Not gonna lie, it took me two attempts because I did fall asleep. I think it took me 2 days because of said falling asleep. It is what it is at the end of the day. It's got Ryan Reynolds in, who's basically playing Deadpool. The start of that incarnation of Deadpool. I think that it's better to look at the almost mythology around that film rather than watch the film itself. Just reading about that film, the way it got made, the way that certain actors were in that film, the way that certain actors interacted with certain people, like the director and so on and so forth. It's amazing to just read about it. It's fascinating. Like I say, more fascinating than the actual film. So you've got that. That has completed my watch of the Blade trilogy. It is what it is. I think part of me wants to say that I don't think they've aged very well. They were in that ilk of films that way back in the day carried the Marvel logo. But hey, that's that basically. Let's talk computer games. Now this is the point where I am going to have to admit something. I am struggling to get round to playing VR because of the puppy. It's becoming a little bit of a thing for me. I'm a bit like, I really want to play VR, but I just don't see how it's possible at the moment, even when he's in his den. Like I say, he's clingy. He's a bit needy, which is fine. I get it. I understand why. But does that help? Does that help to get things done? Not overly. So yeah. However, I do have the opportunity to play console games because I am up X amount of the night. I've got 3 games on my list. One I'm not going to spend a long talking about, which is Dead Space. Because I have different setup downstairs to upstairs. I have like the current consoles, but they're not current anymore. Like the PS4 and the Xbox One upstairs. Downstairs, I'm still rocking PS3 and an Xbox 360. In the last week or so, I have changed that. I've moved the PS4 downstairs to allow me to play current stuff. But for a time being, all I had was the older generation of consoles. And I'd been going through a load of games, came across the Dead Space trilogy. I was like, I'm absolutely playing Dead Space. So I played Dead Space. Myself and Sam, podcast alum Sam, have recorded a gaming podcast where we talk about the Dead Space franchise. The idea was that we were going to do a series on a series of games, gaming podcasts. But as it is, we haven't recorded another one yet. And because of that, I haven't released the first one we recorded because I wanted to get like a few, or at least a couple. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the one about Dead Space just on its own, and then if we ever come back to doing more, then that's fine. So that's the reason I'm not going to talk to you about Dead Space. It's also 13 years old, so it's not exactly current. Let's talk about Cyberpunk. So I saw on the internet the other day that they're like, oh, big fix, big patch for Cyberpunk, big fix, fixes loads of stuff, it's fixing all sorts of stuff, get it downloaded. So I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. 44 gigabytes, the patch. I had to delete 2 games to get the patch onto the PlayStation. So I was like, ooh, I'm looking forward to this. Let's give it a whirl. I would go out on a limb and say that other than a couple of minor things, like day-to-day isn't the right word, but like, the stuff that you do constantly, other than a couple of minor things that have been improved, I can safely say that they have made the game worse, which I think most people thought was impossible. 44 gig, and that's what you gave us. It's such a shame because, as I've said from day one, I do think somewhere locked away deep inside that game there is an actual game, but it's so well hidden. Yeah. Didn't stop me continuing to play it. I was playing through as the new character I'd made. I have started doing a bit of sort of looking into stuff on the internet, looking and watching some videos here, there, and just trying to find a few more of like the hidden things, or trying to find like free vehicles or free weapons and stuff like that. Just sort of dive into the game a bit deeper. Because there is some interesting stuff in there. It's just very well hidden. But I'm not playing Cyberpunk at the moment. I am playing the game Outriders. And hey, if you thought Cyberpunk was broken, Outriders is a game that doesn't even let you log in to play. On average, it takes 3 attempts, 4 attempts sort of thing to log into the game. And hey, once you've got logged in, chances are the missions aren't going to work. So the number of times I've got to points in missions where it's like, okay, I can't progress any further, I'm guessing this is broken. So then you have to like log out of the game to log back in, and guess what? Yeah, you can't get back in. I was talking to Sam about it. Sam keeps mentioning about how they just keep talking about how there's like these major server issues where you can't get logged on. I can confirm that. But as a game, once you are in it, there are a lot of issues. It feels very much like Cyberpunk. As a game, it's playable. It's fine. There's nothing that really stands out overly much. There's nothing that really makes me go, oh, this game's great, this game's brilliant. It's a game I am playing. And you know something? I know that it's not a great game when I know that there are 3 other classes that I'm not playing as. And the thought of playing as the other classes makes me go, ugh. That's not a good sign. For everything everybody ever said about Anthem, I was excited to play the other classes. And some of the classes weren't great, but from where I started and the other classes I got, some of them were really good. This is just like, yes, I'm playing it. Yes, time is passing. That I guess that's about all I can really say. That's the achievement here. There are times when I've wanted to go back to just go back and play Cyberpunk. As a complete aside, I've just seen the VR headset. Saying that I'm really struggling to get time to play VR probably doesn't help that I then went and bought 10 VR games, because I bought a humble bundle of 8 games for £10, absolute steal, whilst also buying 2 games that was in the humble bundle sale. So yeah, I bought 10 VR games. No idea when I'm going to get to play them. Anywho, yeah, Outriders, underwhelming is what I would say. Horribly broken in a lot of ways, and really there are points when I'm like, it does that thing where it's like, oh my god, I can't log in. This is my 3rd attempt at logging in. Honestly, if it doesn't log in this time, I'm just going to take the disc out and put Cyberpunk back on. And then typically it logs in that time. It's that sort of thing. I did buy another game. I haven't tried it yet. Recommendation from a friend to get Ancestors. It's a game where you play as a load of monkeys. It's a survival evolution game thing. Haven't played it yet, so can't talk about it, I'm afraid. Hush hush, because I haven't played it. So that is that. 2 weeks worth of content in one. Obviously, apologies for doing it this way, but needs must as the devil drives. So there we go. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will catch you next time. So there we go. What do you think to that? Another one done. Another one closer to the big 100. Should probably do something special for it. Tell you what, while you're subscribing on YouTube, why don't you drop a comment in and give me a suggestion of what I could do that's special for the 100th episode. Also, if you're just subscribing on the old SoundCloud or iTunes or something like that, do the same. You can drop comments there as well. So there we go. That's it for this one. Till next time, I'm going to say bye, and I'll see you then. Bye-bye.